The whole idea of going to college, of going and pursuing a higher education really started with me recognizing that where I was living was not good.
I would sit out there on my reservation and look at the sparkling lights of Bellingham and think, gosh, someday I'm going to get to experience things.
Trying to go to college, the hardest problem was income. It scared me. That was actually the biggest reason why I didn't want to go to college.
Having immigrant parents and being raised where I was definitely had an influence, because I mean, most of the people I know around my neighborhood don't go to college.
My mom, she didn't have a very good education. I think the highest she went was 10th grade, and it was because when she was younger and the generation that she was, and that she had 13 siblings altogether, that her mother put them as migrant workers when they were younger.
Help that I got from my family was very, very little. I assumed that they didn't know anything because they didn't. They didn't know how the American school system works.
My older brother encouraged me to go to college. He's 30 years old right now. He encouraged me to go to college basically because he said, even though I will anyway have to end up getting a job and working one day, I still should go to college to maybe better the opportunities I can get instead of just working 9 to 5 every day with no advancement.
I mean, I had my first job when I was 12, and I've had a job since then.
My mom was a single mother for a time, and she was a teller at a bank, and that was very difficult for her. I remember one time her balancing her checkbook and coming down to find out that we had 17 cents left to live on until her next payday.
By the time I was like 15 years old, I was paying bills in the house because we needed it.
My mom is the only woman in our family to put both her kids through high school.
When you're 14 or 15, you're not thinking about what are you going to do when you get out of that school, but you really got to keep your grades up. So when you're a junior and senior in high school, you set yourself up to get a good enough GPA to when you're filling out scholarship applications for them to look at you and be like, well, he accomplished something in high school.
There was a moment there that made a big difference in my life, I think, and it was that she broke down crying and she said, I wish I would have gone to school.
Do I want to spend my life in poverty? Do I want to spend my life in the ghetto? Do I want to spend my life surrounded with a vast gap of lack of opportunity? I knew growing up in the place that I was growing up in, that education was my ticket out of there. I started to see that, it was a possibility for me too. There were ways to go to college if I really wanted to go to college. So I just started talking with people, really making myself vulnerable, which was hard to do.
It was just my family mainly that was, I think they were just scared, like that I was not going to be successful, or I don't know, that something bad was going to happen to me.
My mom had a problem with me leaving for college.
They tried to scare me, honestly, a lot. They said, well, once you leave, you really can't come back. You have to finish. You're going to be by yourself. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be lonely.
To not be helpless, you have to go and, become empowered through education.
If you're poor, like me, if you're poor, you will get financial aid.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people that go to college don't seek out any resources to help them, but I always found if I could get help from 20 people, I would go see the 20 people. And I know people in my graduating class that wouldn't even go to one person for help.
What does it really take to go to college? And then I started looking at, costs and living and everything else, and I thought, well, I can't do that. That's too much money. My family doesn't have that kind of money.
If you only have one mother that's taking care of you in the whole household, you will get financial aid.
There's just all of these barriers and roadblocks, but no, you can do it. There's a way, and you just, find the people that can help you.
Whatever it is that I need, there is something. There is somebody there to help me.
There's so much money out there to be had if you just keep trying and keep applying. And if you don't get one, just go on to the next application and try again.
Ask for help from your counselors, because if you go ask for help, they can't just tell you no. Plain and simple. They just can't be like, no, get out of my face.
I just think if you think about it too much, you really won't do it because all those ifs get in the way of what you really want to do.
There's always opportunities out there. Don't let you being poor discourage you from coming to school. Don't ever let how much money you got discourage you from going to school.
I felt like not very prepared for college and high school. There are a lot of challenges that I had to overcome, and I really had to do that by myself because there wasn't a lot of people here that could relate.
You have to read a book in a week. You have to write a paper that's over 10 pages. I was like, I could hardly write a paragraph. I can't write this for next week. So that was always very, very scary, but challenging. So, I set myself that in my mind that it was part of the challenge. It was part of being in college. If I have to read this book by next week, I'll burn my eyelashes. I'll read it.
I lost my textbook, so I went to ask the professor if he had any, or it was a female professor, if she had any extra material that I can read from while I buy another textbook. And she gave me her textbook, and I knew from there that if she gave me her own textbook, she wanted me to learn. And at that time, I had an F in the class. I had a straight F, like 30%. I ended up with like 78% in her class.
I had no idea what to expect. I felt, again, very small and insignificant, seeing that I was meeting people from Wyoming and California and Arizona. I felt very small. And being that where I was from, it was predominantly black. When I came to a liberal arts school that was predominantly white, it was like a culture shock in itself altogether.
I'm in orientation, and all I see is a big pool of blonde hair, blue eyes, green eyes, and I was frozen. It was like, wow, I was completely shocked. I've never seen so many, Caucasian people in my life, never.
I felt a little weird about being the only black person in a lot of my classes. I felt very weird and very out of place, and then enraged later when I was asked by a couple of professors what the black perspective was on their own questions. And I've never had to encounter something like that before. And my first reaction was to get mad and go off. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm gonna have to overlook somebody else's ignorance. I'm not gonna do it a whole lot, but I'll overlook it this first couple of times simply because I know you don't know, and you definitely don't know who you're dealing with.
Some of the teachers look at me when I go into their class, and like they figure this guy's a clown. He's not here to learn. He looks like he's urban. His pants are sagging, or he got his hat on backward or something. And they're gonna look at what you wear and how you're walking, and they're gonna basically judge your personality on that.
When you're in college, you don't want to just make it through class. You don't want to just excel in classes and that's it. You want to be part of the soccer team. You want to be part of the clubs and just have fun, have a good time in college.
Basically, I just had to get an A on their test. And they'll know that I'm not a clown no more. And they know that I'm not just gonna come here just because I have to and get a C or get a D just to pass the class.
Knowing I could tell people, hey, I'm going to college, can you believe it? It was great. And to hear them to actually say, yes, I do believe it, then it made me feel even better.
I didn't even know what I wanted to do when I started school.
You don't really need to know what you're going to study when you go to college because it doesn't really matter until you get there and actually take a class, because a class in let's say history in high school is very different than the way it would be in college.
You can do this. You got through high school, you did it by yourself basically, and you don't have to do college by yourself. You have to have the confidence that you are smart enough, you are good enough, and you definitely deserve to be there. And you have what it takes. But if you didn't, you wouldn't have been there in the first place.
Like a lot of people that I've met and a lot of people in high school feel like there's no way out. And I don't know, I always think that you can do anything if you really want to.
You have what it takes. You just need the confidence to go on and complete and finish.
It really comes down to wanting to do it, because if you want something and you're willing to work hard for it, then you're gonna find a way.
I think anybody can do it. If I can do it, they can do it. And like I said, I wasn't the best student in high school. I really wasn't. I I barely made it. I like barely skimmed by.
Think about, any kind of life other than the one that you have. If you're not happy with the one that you have, or, if you feel like there's something more, just think about what else there could be.
Believing in myself and believing that I have the drive and the will to better myself is a great motivation. And I would just tell myself not to doubt and just keep pushing forward and know that everything was going to be okay.
Now that I'm in college and I'm in my first year, she's like the happiest mother ever.
It's changed how much I know about the world as in an educational standpoint and what you need to know to get job opportunities and actually succeed.
I found who I am, and it changes all the time, but it's still who I am.
I went out and I experienced the world and sort of saw what it was about, and that it was going to be hard and difficult. And when I found out that I was going to become a mother, I knew that I had to go back to school and get my degree.
I look back on it and I was like, wow, I have it in myself not to feel like anything can hold me back anymore. I have it in myself not to take challenges and not to run away from them. So when times I felt like I started to question why I was here or I shouldn't be here, I was like, no, bump that. I worked my behind off to get here. I deserve to be here, and I worked very hard to stay here. So anything else that's outside of that bubble, I could care less. And regardless if I'm the only black student, the only student in there, if half the class is Asian and I'm still the only black student, I don't care. I worked my behind off to be here. I'm going to graduate from here, and I deserve it. Bottom line. Next question. Yeah, that was a little... Yeah, next question. Go ahead.
If you could give just...
Tell exactly how you feel, Eric.
That's right. Yeah.